Welcome back to AFTV, welcome back to In Focus, and you know what, it's exciting because we are looking ahead to Manchester United on the weekend and some Premier League football. We're going to talk about Victor Gyokeres and whether he should be starting this game. And of course, there'll be the preview, the Predict 11. We'll be getting people's thoughts, Turkish Cecil. I'm sure throughout the weekend we'll be debating whether the new £65 million man should be leading the line, especially after his goal against Bilbao. But what I wanted to do was look a little bit at what we knew of the player before signing him. What we've seen in, yes, limited pre-season football, but that's what Arteta's got to go on, right, ahead of United. And then make a decision, looking at some stats, looking at what he's done well, looking at what Man United are about, make a decision together, let me know in the comment section below, whether he should be starting. And some of you will be going, he scored against Bilbao, Havertz hasn't been fit, yes, he should start. Sometimes football is as simple as that. Sometimes there's more to it. If you want to go more into it, stick with us in this video. Now, Graham isn't here, as you can see. Graham did do a lot of amazing work and research on Victor Gyokeres. I know a lot of you have been asking, why did you do an In Focus on Sesko, but you never did one on Victor Gyokeres? Is that because he was your favourite, that was your preference? It honestly was just timing. Well, that was part of it. Then there was another week where we were meant to do stuff for medical emergency and stuff. I couldn't be a part of that. So we couldn't do the filming. But he did do all the prep he did for Sesko on Gyokeres as well. So don't think that we have a favourite, okay? Some of you have accused us of that. But also, we are excited about this signing. And I want him starting against Man United. Spoiler, but let's try to break down why. Now, one of the things that Graham sent to me was what were his perceived strengths of Victor Gyokeres through the research he'd done. And we've got here in this graphic his aggression. He's physical, he's got really good stamina, he's got real pace, his off-the-ball work is superb, his channel running is brilliant, he makes lots of runs in behind, good hold-up play, he's got technical quality, he's a two-footed finisher, and he's a decent aerial threat too. So as you can see on this graphic, I've put strengths pre-signing. Let's tweak that word to strengths pre-season as we go to this other graphic. What I've done, I've put a couple of these in italics, and I've struck a line through one. I think we've seen Gyokeres' aggression. I think we've seen the way he does everything. There is a bullish nature to the way he attacks the ball, to the way he strikes the ball, to the way he presses players, to the way he tries to carry, to the way he tries to pin defenders. Aggression is absolutely there. You can then put that into the physical side. Now, physical is your ability to actually do it with your body. The aggression is your intent to do it. Physically, he's absolutely there too, there's no question. Stamina, he works so hard. We've absolutely seen that in what was, an hour against Villarreal, maybe a little bit more against Bilbao. We have seen that kind of stamina and its kind of relentlessness there. Pace, I mean, with pace, I think we have seen it in terms of the fact that we've played balls into the channel, the fact that we've seen runs off the ball that, you know, the likes of Martin Ødegaard have made, that he's been trying to run onto. So I think we have seen that pace from him too. I think off the ball, we've seen that movement, we've seen that sort of willingness to win the ball back, but we've also seen, like I've just mentioned, Ødegaard's through balls that he's been getting on the end of. We'll talk about it in more detail. Channel running, again, a lot of these things filter into his channel running and his running into the spaces highlight the off the ball movement, the pace, all that. Runs in behind, we've talked about. Hold up play, I don't know. The reason I've put this in italics is I'm not sure we've seen him try. I'm not sure we've seen that kind of top level hold up play. I'm not sure we've seen that ability to use his strength and his sort of quality on the ball to bring players into play necessarily. I know that second goal against Bilbao was a really good example of it, where he did, you know, pin a defender, get it into Ødegaard as the ball went over the top and we scored. So that's what I've got in italics. So I won't say we haven't seen it at all, but I'm not sure we've seen it to a level where we go, yep, this is going to be a major strength of his. I then struck a line through technical quality. Now, please don't think I'm being harsh. Being a great finisher is part of technical quality. I actually think we've seen some really good skill where he has dropped the shoulder a little bit. He has sort of, you know, centre defender sliding past, as I think it was in the Villarreal game where he did shimmy past two players to try and get across into the box. We have obviously seen, you don't get to that level if you don't have technical quality. But I think we've seen a lot of misplaced passes. I think we've seen a lot of forcing passes that weren't on. I think we've seen, you know, carries that have kind of gone off the pitch. I think there's more to that side of his game. We just haven't seen it yet. So I want to make that very clear. I think the technical quality is there. I'm just not sure we've quite seen it yet in the few pre-season games we've seen. Two-footed finisher. Look, we've seen a goal with his head. So he clearly wants to strike the ball with both feet, but I don't think we can say that we've necessarily seen that side of him yet. And, again, Graham put decent aerial threat. That goal suggests he could be more than a decent aerial threat. But I was talking to Ben Mattinson on the Gyokeres, and one of the really good points Ben made was it's important to remember that the finish, in terms of the quality, of the finish, to guide the ball into the far corner the way he did was brilliant. But it was a somewhat uncontested header. He wasn't being marked out very well. They're not the most physical team, Bilbao. So again, we've seen that aerial threat in terms of the goal, but I'm not sure we're quite seeing it in terms of, have we seen it to a point where we go, oh wow, he's definitely going to be a major aerial threat in the way Gabriel is for us. But I think it was a really encouraging start. So I want to just take all those strengths there that Graham had sent through and talk about what we've kind of seen. A lot of them mould into one, as we mentioned. Pace, off the ball, channel running behind. A lot of them are the kind of the same things, but done in slightly different ways and slightly different attributes. Let's go to more preseason takeaways. This was his heat map against Athletic Bilbao. We can see he came off for Kai Havertz in the 71st minute. And look, the heat map suggests he was slightly more involved off to the left-hand side. I think this might be as well more a heat map showing where he's actually touched the ball, where he's had the ball. No, it can't be. It must be just heat map. Anyway, but there's a slight left bias with the three most concentrated areas that he's been playing, all left of that penalty spot. He likes to go into those channels. We'll annotate that a little bit more on the tactical pad, but that is definitely the area he favours. And I think Gabriel Martinez has been benefiting from this a little bit more as well. So interesting to see whether we get a high level of performance from Martinelli because Gyokeres is in the team. Now I want to show two things that we have seen from Gyokeres that have really stood out to me more than anything. Firstly, the effort he puts in this area of the pitch. When there is opposition and the ball's there to be won, he is really tracking back often to try and win that ball back and create a transition moment, because often Arsenal get a few players around that player, you win it back, and suddenly there's not only an opportunity for a Saka to maybe be running at a fullback that isn't a fullback without a winger that's doubling up on him. There's a little bit more space for Gyokeres to attack too. So I definitely think that sort of bullish nature to sort of run back and win the ball back is a bit of a pest in that way. I think it's been a really, really encouraging thing. The other thing we've seen, constantly making runs. Yeah, we've seen this. Now Arsenal will stretch the pitch, and what we've seen is the constant runs in behind, as I mentioned when I was going through his strengths, but I just want to annotate it a little bit on the tactical pad. Ødegaard has been trying things from various areas to find a Victor Gyokeres running behind. He's been pulling out wide a little bit too. And it's not just Ødegaard. I think players like Zubimendi are going to benefit from that. I think Martinelli is going to benefit from that. But he has been constantly pulling off, trying to just attack space. And I think this is the reason I keep mentioning this point is I want to run it later in the video when we talk about Man United, whether he should play. Graham's got a really good theory about this in his notes that I've slightly interpreted in a different way to discuss, for this Manchester United game. But I think the fact that Gyokeres is a relentless runner is going to do us a lot of favours in this game, and is actually going to suggest that he should start ahead of someone like a Kai Havertz, but we'll get to that. I want to show you this. This is Victor Gyokeres' off-the-ball run types, and all gathered by the Athletic, but as you can see, it looks like his percentile versus centre-forwards across Europe's top 7 leagues, and you can see he's in the 89th percentile for runs in behind. For lateral runs, if you want to sort of zoom in, you can see the definition of some of these things. For example, a lateral run is pulling wide, or into the half space from a central channel. But you can also see he's not one for necessarily coming short too much or making support runs or dropping off. What's the other one? Ahead of the ball. Yeah, he's rarely kind of ahead of the ball. These kind of things are, I think it gives you an insight for Victor Gyokeres. And I think what we've seen in these pre-season games is kind of matching up with what we've been seeing. What I would say is coming short, he's been trying to do that as an Arsenal player in the very few appearances we've seen. But again, I don't want to sound too critical. You can tell it doesn't come too naturally to him. This is just my opinion, by the way. Let me know. I mean, I know fans who follow Swedish football, have been watching him play for Sweden, say that actually that's a side of this game you see a lot more of. So maybe it's just a case of the numbers are low for Sporting because it's not what he was asked to do, but with a little bit more time and comfort in the Premier League, it's absolutely something he can do. But I'm not sure in these early pre-season games we've seen that look so completely natural to him, if I'm being really honest. But like I said, in space, he's killing people. The other thing he's doing, and I want to discuss that goal he scored, is I think he's someone who you want to do things very, very quickly in terms of releasing the ball to him, but also doing things before the defence is set. Because he's a very physical player. I think the way for teams to stop him is to match that physicality, but you can't match it if you're too busy worrying about what the ball's doing. Now, what Zubimendi did brilliantly with that goal that Gyokeres scored against Bilbao is he crossed it first time. He didn't take a touch, because the minute you take that touch, the defence are going, right, set yourselves, we know what's coming. He whipped it in first time, and the defence are still resetting from the fact that Bukayo Saka was high up the pitch. They've been defending a corner. He releases it straight back to Zubimendi, who whips it back into the box. There's 2 touches before Gyokeres' third touch puts it into the back of the net. Doing things really, really quickly, releasing that ball really, really quickly is going to be important, because Gyokeres will come up against faster and stronger players in the Premier League than himself. But it is so difficult for them to stop him if that ball comes in early. And I think we saw with that first goal, it's a great header, and I was making Ben's point earlier that, to be fair, it was uncontested and there weren't players around him necessarily, or he didn't have maybe the kind of pressure to score that goal that he might have week in, week out in the Premier League in terms of the ball into the box, the space he's got, the header he's got to execute. But if we remove kind of the qualities of Premier League centre-backs, then it doesn't really matter, because you get that ball in early enough and it's all about Gyokeres' instinctive movement and his ability to finish. He is strong enough to battle with them, but I think the point is Zubimendi recognised very quickly in that moment, get it in early, and Gyokeres' header was sublime. And I think that is what you buy him for. You buy him for those moments. You buy him for the fact that he can turn a low XG chance into a goal. And actually you reflected it and go, well, actually Arsenal didn't create too much, but you know what? They scored 2 goals, but Victor Gyokeres was on the end of that supply. And I think it's really important that Arsenal continue to play to those strengths, especially against Man United. Now we're moving to the Man United side of things, where they will have 3 centre-backs. There won't be a lot of space for him necessarily, so do things early. Now this takes me on to whether he should start this game. Now, I've got here, it's from Canon Stats. Look, it compares Kai Havertz to Sesko to Gyokeres to Ekitike. Sesko's now at Man United, Ekitike's gone to Liverpool. But there's some interesting things that have stood out to me in the Kai Havertz versus Gyokeres battle. Now, one of them is the aerials one. If you look, Kai Havertz for aerials 1 is a 2.71 per game. Gyokeres is way down at 1.15. If Arsenal want to bypass the press and go direct, then they're probably going to want to play to their most accurate aerial threat. And we've done that before. I remember the Tottenham game last year where we won 1-0 away from home. We were going long to Kai Havertz a lot. To Havertz and Saka, actually, to try play off those balls where Trossard was getting nearer, Saka was running onto it. You know, I think there's going to be a temptation, because I think Man United will come out attacking us. I think Man United will be on the front foot. I think they'll want to really make a statement with Mbemo and Cunha in there. I think there's a very good chance that they press high up the pitch and Arsenal tend to want to go over that press. And Kai Havertz might be a more natural threat. But I've also got written here, Gyokeres can stretch a United side that is looking to press. And this was a point that I alluded to earlier that Graham had made. What if, instead of United pressing and us trying to go over because they're doing that, what if we encourage them not to press at all, because Victor Gyokeres has the pace and power to get in behind teams, to stretch a team, therefore they're actually going to want to sit back to allow him not to do that. Like, do you get what I'm saying? You're sort of playing chess here with them. It's calling each other's bluff. And Graham made this point that Arsenal, I think he said that they conceded 33 goals from errors made, and a lot of that is down to teams pressing Arsenal. But what if that number drastically reduces because teams don't want to press, because if they press, they're leaving space for Victor Gyokeres to kill him? Do you get where I'm going with this? Do you get where Graham's going with this? I think it's a really, really interesting point. So yeah, maybe if United are going to take the game to us, Kai Havertz is a little bit more suited to that. Some of you might say, okay, but if they're going to take the game to us, isn't there more space for Gyokeres to exploit? Sure, I mean, there's that too. But either way, you can't, by having Gyokeres in the team, whether they decide not to press because of it or they stick to their game plan anyway, I think he feels more suited to whatever we want to do to combat that. But I acknowledge that Kai Havertz has been our way of getting over a team like Manchester United if they're going to take the game to us. We've done that before, and the numbers suggest he's a little bit more suited to it. We've also got here that defensive actions are in favour of Kai. You can see 5.12 for Kai Havertz, down to 1.77 for Gyokeres. We need to remember the team they've been playing for. Stylistically, there's a lot to say, but as I've mentioned earlier on the tactical pad, Gyokeres has shown no shortage of work rate, and his willingness to hurry players that are in central midfield and try and sort of almost run from behind to win that ball back, that's really, really encouraging. And yeah, I can't say Kai Havertz works hard. He works incredibly hard, but I can't say that that's like an area that Kai Havertz is like significantly above when it comes to Gyokeres, unless it's a tactical understanding, an ability to press, an ability to win the ball back. It's not a willingness thing, it's actually a tactical understanding to do that more effectively. Away from home, Mikel Arteta will always want those defensive principles there. So that's where the debate starts to come in. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. But there's this as well. Look at his goal record. This is from ESPN FC. The numbers are phenomenal. When you're going to Manchester United, whatever form they're in, it is just an awkward game. It is not an easy 3 points, whatever form they're in. Especially first game of the season, especially with a completely new front line, especially with a reinvigorated fan base, maybe a little bit because of those, I don't know, because of those signings, maybe the fact they've only got one game a week, they've got a little bit more to give in each Premier League game now. You look at that and you think, do you just make it tilt in your favour by having the goal scorer to do that? Maybe we don't play any better for having Gyokeres in terms of overall play, in terms of dominating. But when we get that 1 or 2 chance, we've actually taken it because there's Gyokeres on the end of it. Like, that's the other way to look at it. Just get the goals in the team. And those fine margins might fall more in your favour. Of course, there's fitness, there's form. Gyokeres got the goal. Havertz has been playing. You know, and really, when you're talking about dropping into midfield, which you asked your striker to do, Man United play the 2-man midfield anyway, so really, should we dominate midfield? But then actually, if Mbemo and Cunha tuck in, then they've got 4. All these things Mikel Arteta will have to think about. But in conclusion, I'd go for Gyokeres because he just got the goal. There's no shortage of work rate. If they're going to press us, I think he's suited to that. And what did we sign him for? You know? But Kai Havertz scored a really good goal the other day. And he might be saying, I know what this is about. I've been a part of a team that's gone to Old Trafford and won. I got the assist for Trossard. I know what I'm doing in these big games too. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Should Victor Gyokeres start against Manchester United? Would you go with Kai Havertz? And crucially, who do you think Mikel Arteta will go with there? Quite a bit we've gone into. Big thanks to Graham, who as always, his contributions have played a massive part in this video, even though he wasn't here to be a part of it. But we will be back with tactical insight in about a month or so. I know he's away for a little while, but don't worry, the show will return to AFTV and we'll be reacting to every Arsenal game and analysing what went right and what went wrong. Big thanks everyone, subscribe to the channel and I'll see you very soon.